Oh, that day will live in infamy, so far as I'm concerned. I got up that morning, and for some reason we couldn't get out of that house. We were supposed to meet Moses down at 12th Street Station. We could hear the whistle blowing as we got to the steps. He tore up the steps. I said, wait a minute. I said, you didn't kiss me goodbye. Where are you going? How do I know I'll ever see you again? And he said, oh, Mama, he really scolded me. And I wondered why I said a dumb thing like that.
They always kind of prepped you for going to Mississippi, made you very aware of what could happen and what the South was like. And so I was very much aware of what could happen while we were in Mississippi. And I don't know if Emmett was told or not.
That summer when Emmett and Wheeler arrived, it was the beginning of the cotton harvest time. During the day, we would pick cotton all day. After the weighing up, well, after we finished picking the cotton, we had our supper. Then we decided to go to the little country store. From the country store, we went up to Money. That's where we met other boys, and the checker game was going on.
When we got to the store in Money, Brian's store, I went in and I don't know what I purchased, but I spent some money. And as I was in the store spending my money, Emmett Till came in. So I left out and left him in the store.
When he came out, that's when they sent me in to make sure that he didn't say anything out of line. Now, what he said inside the store, I don't know before I got there.
He asked for 10 cents to get 10 cents worth of bubble gum. He put the money into her hand, just like that. And she ducked her hand back. So that was it.
He and I left the store together. We didn't have any conversation with Mrs. Bryant. We left together. She came out of the store and went to her car, which was parked on the north side of the store. And as she was going to her car, that's when Emmett whistled at her, the famous wolf whistle.
Yes, he whistled at Carolyn Bryant when she came out of the store.
No one knew that he was going to whistle. And when he whistled, he scared everybody in the bus. And when he saw our reaction, he got scared. We all panicked, including Emmett. We jumped in the car, and when we got in the car just wasn't moving fast enough. Our neighbor, Rutha Mae Crawford, she told us that we was going to hear some more about that. And I didn't think nothing of it, because I'd never heard of anything like that before.
We had heard this colored man said that they was going to get it. That's how we knew to go back to tell Mo was right. To take the boys to Grenada to the train station. Put them on the train. He didn't do it.
This is Mo Wright. I am the uncle of Emmett Louis Till. Sunday morning about 2:30, someone called at the door. And I said, who is it? And he said, this is Mr. Bryant. I want to talk with you and the boy. And when I opened the door, there was a man standing with a pistol in one hand and a flashlight in the other hand. And he asked me, did I have two boys there from Chicago? I told him I have. And he said, I want the boy that done all that talk.
I hear this noise in the bedroom. And I look up and I see this Roy Bryant. I knew him. And I saw the other tall, bald-headed man that was hollering and fussing. They told me to lay back down and go to sleep. But I kept my eyes open and saw what was going on, that they was going to take Emmett. At that point, I didn't know where they was going to take him. I said, well, maybe they're going to take him home.
They aroused him out of the bed, and I don't think he really knew what was going on. So he was answering their question, but he wasn't saying yes, sir, and no, sir. So they became irate about that. It was a terrifying experience. He had no idea what was going on, really. Yeah, had no idea the kind of people that he was dealing with, he was faced with. He had no way of conceiving what the South was like, no kind of way.
In the room, my mom, she offered them money not to take the boy, and that's when Roy kind of hesitated. But Marlon wouldn't have nothing of it. He had made up his mind. He was the one with the gun. He had a .45 in his hand, and he was calling the shots. He claimed that he was just going to take him up the road and just whip him and turn him loose. That's what he said he was going to do.
And then march him to the car, and they asked someone there, was this is the right boy? And the answer was, here. And they drove toward money.
After they left, Mama was very upset. And Daddy was walking around, all he could say is, he was saying, That's all he could say. And I'm laying there in the bed, waiting for them to bring him back. Every car that I would hear coming down the road, I thought it was them bringing him back. But then when it began to get turned towards dawn, I knew they weren't going to bring him back.
The saddest day I ever seen in my life. Oh, Lord, that was sad. Everybody down that road cried.
I was sound asleep at 9:30. And I guess I'd slept about a couple hours. And it was Willie Mae telling me that those men had come and taken Bo away from my uncle's house, her father's house.
That night of Emmett Till murder, which we didn't know he had been murdered that night, in the middle of the night, my sister and I was lying up in the window like trying to get some air, and we saw this fire in a barrel in the back of J.W.'s house, and we woke our parents up, and my father walked out the back door and stood on the porch and he came back in and said, there's a fire at J.W. Marlin house in the barrel. It was burning something up.
Well, there was shock, sadness, anger, and almost unbelief. It was a strange feeling. Strange feeling.
I found out about it 9:30 Sunday morning. I was in bed. I got up, called my mother, and I got the news because every decision I had ever made or every prep that I had ever been in, it took her to get me out of it. And I took that one to Mama, too, because I didn't know what to do. Mother told me to come right over, and she would start making calls. And I got over there as quickly as I could make it. And that wasn't very long.
Sheriff Strider wanted an immediate burial because he knew that it wouldn't be good for the state of Mississippi for people to see what had happened to Emmett Till. And the only way you could stop people from seeing was to bury it. I mean, get it out of sight. I don't know what authority he had to bury my son, but he took that authority.
We were told to meet at the church. We're going to have a funeral today. We're going to bury the body. We all went to the church that day. The grave was dug. The body was there in a pine box. It had an awful stench to it. And we was getting ready to put the body in the ground when we got word to stop the burial.
Oh, my God. Number one, when I first saw that box, I just collapsed. That box seemed to me to be as bigger than anything I'd ever seen before. But that was just the beginning. The size of the box was really the easy part. When I discovered that the box could not be opened, then I wondered, what on earth in the world is going on? You mean to tell me that I have spent all of this money to get a body that I can't even look at? How do I know what's in the box? I said, Mr. Rayner, do you have a hammer? He said, what do you mean? He said, yes, I have a hammer. I said, I mean, if you can't open the box, I can. And I'm going in the box. My father was on one side of me, and Rayfield Moody was on the other side of me, and Jean was at my back. And I shrugged them. I said, turn me loose. I've got a job to do. And I don't have time to be fainting now. I said, I want the world to see this, because there's no way I can tell this story and give them the visual picture of what my son looked like.
I believe that the whole United States is mourning with me. And if the death of my son can mean something to the other unfortunate people all over the world, then for him to have died a hero would mean more to me than for him just to have died.
We are doing all we can do to investigate the Till murder. We have made a complete investigation, plan to go as far as possible in the prosecution of the case. I may add that we have had the full cooperation of all the white and colored citizens of Lafleur County.
It's my opinion that the guilt begins with Mrs. Bryant, and I want to see Mrs. Bryant punished, her husband, and any other persons that were in on this thing. And I feel like the pressure should start from the President of the United States and be channeled all the way down to the township of Money, Mississippi. And I'm certainly of the opinion that inasmuch as my son had to die, that I don't want his death to be a vain thing. If it can further the cause of freedom, then I will say that he died a hero.
What are the exact charges brought against Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, Mr. Chatham?
The federal indictment is that they did willfully, unlawfully, feloniously, and of their manner support kill and murder Emmett Till, a human being.
Is there any other charge brought against these men, Mr. Smith?
Yes, charge of kidnapping.
Is there any further description of that charge?
No.
What possible penalty under the law is there in this kidnapping case?
It could carry the death penalty just this.
The verdict came in not guilty.
How do you folks feel now that it's all over, Roy? How about you? I'm just glad it's over with. J.W.? I am too. Mrs. Bryant, how about you, Mrs. Milam? Did you expect this verdict? Well, I was hoping for it.
Well, the whole trial was just a farce, but the verdict was the one that I had expected to be given.
It was obvious that they had no trouble deciding that they were to let these men go free. And I later heard that, in fact, the reason it even took an hour or whatever hour so it took was that they simply were trying to be correct about the way they delivered their answer. But the answer was a foregone conclusion.
You never expect anything but for them to be acquitted, because that's Mississippi during that time.
Basically, we had no law back in '55 in relation to black and white killing each other.
There are two kidnapping statutes in Mississippi. One carries a 10-year maximum in the state penitentiary. The other statute, which is patterned more or less after the federal Lindbergh statute, as we commonly refer to it, carries the maximum of the death sentence. And the grand jury will be advised of the existence and of the terms of both statutes, and it will be their province to determine which, if either, of the statutes they choose to indict. Mississippi grand jury at Greenwood adjourned just a short while ago and did not return an indictment in the Emmett Till kidnapping case. That's the only comment I'm authorized to make at this time.
You got him on kidnapping. You're looking at him. How can you say not guilty?
I am Sidney Carlton of Sumner, Mississippi, one of the lawyers for J.W. Milam and Roy Brown. Represented them in the murder trial recently in Sumner, Mississippi. I've just received information that the grand jury of Leflore County returned a no true bill against them with the charge of kidnapping of Emmett Till in Leflore County. Frankly, I think that this is a result primarily of the interference in Mississippi and Mississippi affairs by outside interests, and a result of the NAACP and their activities in trying to make something big out of just an ordinary criminal affair in Mississippi. After the trial some 5 or 6 weeks ago now, we are still receiving in the Daily Mail threatening letters from all over the United States saying that justice was not done, when no fair-minded jury in New York, Chicago, Detroit, San Francisco, anywhere else would have convicted these two men on this scanty evidence which was produced.
J.W. Milam told my father they went, picked Emmett Till up, and they was going to kind of like rough him up or beat him up a little bit and let him go. That was his story. But Roy and Kimball really beat him bad, and things just really got out of hand. That was his story, but we know better. And beat him up so bad till he asked Leroy Too Tight Collins and gave him the gun and told him to shoot him and get him out of his misery.
And the whole human community needs to look in and ensure that justice is done. The clock does not stop on this question of justice. This is an injustice that continues as long as the murderers are at large and subject to being punished, but not being pursued.
The 1955 lynching of Emmett Till was a key turning point in the civil rights movement. Now, nearly 50 years later, the Justice Department is reopening this case. I'm going to go live to Washington, D.C. The Justice Department holding a news conference. They plan to reopen a murder investigation of a murder that's almost 50 years old and helped inspire part of the civil rights fight. Let's listen in.
I'm pleased to announce a federal-state partnership to investigate the murder of Emmett Till. Federal prosecutors and FBI agents today are being assigned to investigate the Emmett Till murder in partnership with the District Attorney's Office and local law enforcement. Their findings will serve as the basis for any possible prosecution. Emmett Till unwittingly played a pivotal role in launching the modern civil rights movement. We owe it to Emmett Till, we owe it to his mother, and to his family, and we owe it to ourselves to see if after all these years, any additional measure of justice is still possible. Thank you.
There's not much more I can say about this one. A true injustice. The least we can do is say his name. And I'll see you in the comments, beautiful people.